So this clip is meant to introduce the double helix model of faith formation and anti-racism multiculturalism. And Angela, you were going to start us off with a little background and history.
Yeah, hi, I'm Angela Wilcox, and I'm a member of the Beloved Community staff team. And this model that we're looking at is the outcome of a good year and some of really deep thinking and work on the part of the Beloved Community staff team to create something that concrete that we could begin conversations about how our anti-racism, anti-oppression work and our spiritual practice work are connected. We had started with the idea of creating a map of some kind that would sort of model a journey that people could take, and as they grew, the more complex or more nuanced opportunities might show up on this pathway. But the more we grappled with the idea of trying to map something, and the fact that a lot of this work is iterative, it's work that we need to just keep coming back to, and it's the repeated practice that brings about the evolution. KP came up with this idea of the DNA helix, the double helix, where the two sides of this helix depend on each other to communicate the message or to produce the outcome that they're looking for. And that became sort of the crystallization of our work on the Beloved Community staff team, which is expressed in our end statements that our anti-racism and multicultural work and our spiritual faith formation work depend upon each other and can't exist without each other.
Mm-hmm. And the model shows these DNA connections in 3 different areas: within, among, and beyond. The blue is about personal spiritual practice and personal anti-racism multicultural practice. What are the ways in which we find and keep our balance as people of faith? And what are the ways in which we commit to a practice of anti-racism and multiculturalism? What's the growth that we do in that area for ourselves, with ourselves? The yellow area are the practices among, on the faith formation side, those practices that help us go deep quickly with others. The practices that we do to create the kind of covenanted community among us in our religious community, the practices that remind us that we move from me to we. And then on the anti-racism multicultural side, there are practices among us that help us engage anti-racism and multiculturalism together, not just as individuals that happen to be together, but as a group. We look at this together and we think about how, as a group, we advance the work of anti-racism and multiculturalism. And then the third part of this DNA double helix, the green part, is the part beyond. If you are doing your work within, if you are developing practices that help you find and keep your balance, if you're doing your work among, going deep quickly, that will break your heart open, and it will invite you to organize that compassion to bless the world. On the faith formation side, bless the world with prophetic ministry, and on the anti-racism side, bless the world as an anti-racist multicultural practice. And of course, these two, even as I talk about them, I can just see how deeply interconnected they are. It's in some ways a false separation of the two helices. But when you start to think about them together, how much it enriches both sides of the double helix, to think, if I'm doing this spiritual practice, then how can I add a component that also reminds me of my commitments to anti-racism and multiculturalism?
Well, and by the same token, I'm aware of how much the within, among, and beyond are interconnected. That if I'm not doing my own personal spiritual practice, when I am in situations out in the world where I need to demonstrate a capacity for being uncomfortable in multicultural situations, or where I'm trying to work with someone across difference, and I'm not sure I'm doing it right, I need to be able to depend on those capacities I've built within my within practice, and that I have had the opportunity to strengthen in my among practice before I can put those to work out in the world. And it works on all the different levels. When I'm in proximity to people who are different from me, where I really feel the urgent need to strengthen my practices, that pulls me back to upping my personal practice. That gives me that purpose and the reminder of how important that is to keep as a regular part. So it feels to me that all of these parts of the double helix model kind of move in and out and are interconnected.
And I love that even that gesture that you're making it like an accordion in and out, and there's a spiral that's inside of that too. And we come back to where we started and know it again for the first time. And it's evolved and deepened because of that. And I love how you're talking about the discomfort in that too, how this can help us sit with and be with that discomfort when we really realize that we are not the perfect people we always wanted to be, and still hang in there.
And never shall we be. And yet here we are. And that makes me think too, you know, as we've grappled with this model and tried to understand what it looks like in all these different practices, my own understanding of the model keeps changing and transforming. And I'll think, oh, I used to think, but now I understand. And it eventually occurred to me that that is the exact point of this model, is that I will always feel that way about it, because I will always feel that way about all of these different practices, that I am ever evolving and ever transforming my understanding as I practice within, among, and beyond on both sides of this double helix. It will keep changing me as I change the world and the world changes me.
I hear so much faith in that, both faith and hope, the kind of faith that just says, I'm just going to continue this because I know something will emerge that's useful and fruitful. And this double helix model, there's a much more expanded version that we have available that takes you through filling this out for yourself, that helps you think about what are the personal practices within the practices among and the practices beyond for you and for your groups at Unity Church. And so we'll be sending that out to folks, and we'll be engaging with your practices among and having conversations about how do those two sides of the double helix come together for us.
And I'll add to that, because what you just said appeals to my task-oriented side of myself, that, oh, good, I can fill this out, and then I can file it away, and I'll be done, and I will have accomplished this thing. And it doesn't work that way. So it'll be a fascinating practice as in our groups, we grapple with it and we write down ideas, and then we keep having that evolving understanding, both for our group and for ourselves as we grapple with it. So we're just taking the first step of beginning to play with something that could change the way we engage with the world.
Lovely. Exactly. Anything else people should know right now?
No, but glad to be doing this work with you all.
Yeah.